The readings for this week from the lectionary are in your order of service, and the reading for our focused message from Proclaim is Luke 23, verses 33 through 40.
When they came to the place called the Skull, there they crucified him along with the criminals, one on his right, the other on his left. Jesus said, "Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing." And they divided up his clothes by casting lots. The people stood watching, and the rulers, 7, even sneered at him. They said, "He saved others. Let him save himself if he's the Christ of God, the chosen one." The soldiers also came up and mocked him. They offered him wine vinegar and said, "If you are the king of the Jews, save yourself." There was a written notice above him which read, "This is the King of the Jews." One of the criminals who hung there hurled insults at him. "Aren't you the Christ? Save yourself and us." But the other criminal rebuked him. "Don't you fear God?" he said. "Since you are under the same sentence, we are punished justly, for we are getting what our deeds deserve, but this man has done nothing wrong." Then he said, "Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom." Jesus answered him, "I tell you the truth, today you will be with me in paradise."
Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom. Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom. Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom. Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom. Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom. Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom. Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom. Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom. Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom. Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom.
We have prayers this morning for the Reverend Peggy Thompson as well. She was to have given us our message today, but she's suffering from bronchitis and was unable to. Bed on Sunday morning and stumble into the shower to feast upon some Pop-Tarts and then drive to church because we ache to know more about liturgical seasons. We've heard pastors assure us that the lectionary makes for good discipline. But we pastors have a way too many thoughts, and we have jostling things in your brain that makes you not so much care about some of the things that pastors care about. We don't just come to church hungering for a word about where a particular Sunday falls in the church year. We want a word that speaks to us, no matter what Sunday it is, no matter what Sunday the calendar says it is. On Sunday, we want something to salve our hurts, something to brace for our fear, some light that evaporates our anxiety. I mean, who really cares about the church year? For the record, today marks the last day of the church year, and next Sunday we start Advent, the first Sunday of the church new year. Now, if we expect the liturgical calendar to make sense, we might find a little surprise waiting for us. Christians start the new year at the end. If we read Isaiah next week, we'll talk about in days to come, God will bring about the coming of man. And once again, beginning at the end. We begin the church year with the promise of what God will do and how God will act in the future. If we're surprised at how the church year ends, what do we make of the way the church year ends? At least in this gospel reading, we might argue that the church year ends in the middle of things. I mean, Jesus is still on the cross. He hasn't been resurrected, but is still alive. We remember Jesus' death in the spring. We celebrate his resurrection months before the last Sunday of the year. But on this day, we're back to Jesus being crucified. Who would end a church year this way? The year ends just before Jesus' death and resurrection, with all its significance. It's just troubling. The year ends with the forces of evil in the world at full throttle. Jesus' opponents drag him before Pilate. The lies start pouring out. This man, he perverts our nation. He tells us to refuse to pay taxes to the government. He calls himself king. Jesus never did any of that. And when Pilate raises an eyebrow to all that, they ramp up the shrillness. He's stirring everyone up. Pilate passes the buck to Herod, where Jesus endures mocking contempt and ridicule. Now, most of us haven't gone through mocking contempt and ridicule, though we may have seen people who did. I mean, even Jesus' own people turn on him, shouting against him. Jesus loses a vote to a rebel, Barabbas. I mean, there was a chance for him to live, and they said, who do you want to save? Do you want to save Jesus, or do you want to save Barabbas? And they saved Barabbas. When the scene opens on our segment for today, Jesus hangs in humiliation between two criminals. Brutish, callous soldiers gamble for his clothes. And if those clothes aren't much to roll the dice about, the Roman government has made all three of these men victims. One might expect the three would find comfort in solidarity. We might think that they could support each other, saying something like, look at what the Romans have done to us. One of the criminals didn't see himself as part of us. He even lashed out at Jesus, if you're such a big deal Messiah, here's a chance for you to do some saving. You can start by saving us and save yourself. So the church year ends with Jesus hanging on the cross. Still alive, but deep in humiliation and degradation. Is there anyone that we know of in this world that's being humiliated now? Is there anyone who's being degraded now, saying that they're not worthy? We celebrated our Native American heritage this month. And when you get right down to it, how have Native Americans been treated? It is a miracle a miracle that you don't see people, quote unquote, on the warpath with what their history has been. It is amazing because in our county, we have 2 elected Native Americans on the Board of Supervisors. That has never happened in any of the 58 counties in the state of California ever. It's pretty amazing. Sometimes we have to let go of what was in the past and live for what we have in the future. The future that God gives us. And I am thankful that these 2 men apparently have been able to do that and work for everyone. May we all live our lives with the love of God for everyone. Amen.